Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of My Life in Objects. So it's another programming book for this episode. I've done several now, but as you know, I'm slowly enhancing my programming book library, which has been an ongoing project for quite a number of years, if not decades now. And so I have here a new acquisition, but it's an older book. It's actually around, I think, 10 years old now. And this is Learn Ruby the Hard Way. If you've seen my Reasons and Resources episode for Ruby, I may well have mentioned this book already. It often comes up on several sort of suggested reading lists for learning the Ruby programming language. And I'll also, I'll include a link to that Reasons and Resources episode anyway for Ruby, but I'll also include a link to the Learn the Hard Way website by the author, because there's a whole load of other books and really useful resources on that website. I've got Mav the cat in the director's chair today. He's sitting actually behind me. I'm perched on the edge of my seat because he's actually settled down in the same seat but behind me. He's having one of those Velcro days today, which is great. I've got nothing against Velcro kitties, but it's quite amusing. Some days we want to be in the general vicinity, although not necessarily in my lap, and then other days he'll just disappear and go on some sort of side quest somewhere and you won't see him. So yeah, this is the third edition. So we've got a copyright here of 2015. And one of the reasons I wanted to add this particular book to my library is I was curious about the format, and now I've got it. I'm very pleased about the format, because to me, learning Ruby the hard way is in effect saying learning Ruby the old way, in as much as it's the way in which I learned to program. So, when I learned, there's no internet, so you basically sat there with a programming book, worked your way through it, typed in code from the book, see if it ran, and if it didn't run, then correct it, and rinse and repeat. And what I like about this book is how nicely it's chunked down. Now, I do accept some of the things in here, being that it's now, I'm recording this in 2025, are going to be 10 years old. But I think one of the interesting things as well, if when I start going through this, is to see how much Ruby may have changed in reference to a book where it's going through from the ground up, and seeing how that reflects. So I probably feel more comfortable doing it with a book on Ruby than I might say doing a book on, I don't know, like an old book of, say, I don't know, Scala, or really old book of Python. But we'll see when I come to sort of work my way through this. But I'm really looking forward of just going through this and see how it feels once again to do that, learn a programming language in the old way. The other thing I like about it is it starts right away using a text editor for putting the code in. Now, that's not to say I'm not a big, I do like REPLs and the ability to get that sort of instant gratification. But when I'm learning a language, I do like to start typing into a document straight away. I find REPLs are really useful when you're exploring maybe a language where you haven't used a particular paradigm before, or the particular programming structure, and you just want some instant sort of validation, gratification that you're getting the syntax right, without sort of committing to typing a bit of text in before you run it. So there's strengths and weaknesses, but I definitely like to dive into actually putting the code inside of a document. You know, however people like to do that, whether you like to use a full-blown IDE or whether you're using, you know, like a text editor in combination with the compiler or interpreter. But yeah, that's sort of getting it in and into the document. Nicely spaced out with these. So yeah, type it in, try and run it, tells you exactly what you should see. And then it's got some study drills to sort of reinforce that. And so there's that thing of like rewriting it, and then common questions. And that's the basic structure through the bulk of the book. So there's an exercise about a particular aspect of the language, in this case, variables and names. You've got the program, you've got what you should see, you've got some study drills to try out on what you've put in. Obviously, once you've managed to get it to run, and then common questions, and it just rinses and repeats, which I think is fantastic. The other thing for this is, and obviously the author's done it, is that without me obviously looking at necessarily their other books, I'm assuming they've taken this format and run with it, because it's a really cool format. And I think once you got used to this, you could use your own, you know, hard way on other programming languages. Maybe you could come up with your own set, you know, where you think up an exercise along similar lines. So supposing you take the strings and text here and you wanted to learn something like, I don't know, let's think of something in a completely different paradigm. What about fourth? So yeah, strings and text in fourth. So you could work out in fourth how fourth does similar things. Run it. Obviously, you wouldn't be told up front what you would see, but you could experiment. And then you could try out some similar study drills, but on fourth and so on. So yeah. Now, this style is repeated, I think, most of the way through. I haven't had a chance to go through this properly yet. Like I said, this was you know, a new purchase of an old book. It is, I did buy it secondhand, but it looks like it's one of those books that may have just been sitting on a shelf somewhere, and the reason why it's slightly creased is just shelf wear, or maybe just nowadays, like, you know, probably being shipped has actually made it like this, because I know they don't wrap things up quite as well as they did. Oh, yeah, bit on automated testing, so that'd be interesting to see with that. Playing with the parser. What's this? What about getting input from a browser? Right. So I wonder if here, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. This is actually going to be useful, this section, because I want to migrate some of the stuff I've been doing with large language models and Llama. So I wouldn't mind going back to first principles with that and see how that looks through the lens of Ruby. There's a little list back here. Yeah, so it's interesting because these books, and I don't know what versions or editions these are now in, but yeah, I can see usual suspects here. So yeah, well-grounded Rubyist I'm aware of. Where's that other one I saw here? Yeah, Eloquent Ruby, that was it. I'm trying to think of there's one which has a really famous cover on it, and I just now can't remember. Is it the one with the pickaxe on it? Have I got the right one? Isn't there a pragmatic programming publisher book with, I think it's got a pickaxe on it. Yeah, I could be wrong. I think that's right. Oh, here we go. How to learn any programming language. So yeah, it's essentially giving you the the template, if you like, for learning something else. So yeah, get a book or some introductory text about language, go through the book and type in all of the code, making all of it run. Read the book as you work through the code, taking notes. Use the language to implement a small set of programs you are familiar with in another language. Read other people's code in the language and try to copy their patterns. I would say that's, yeah, pretty much when I first learned to program, that's, yeah, the sort of procedure I would use. So yeah, learning language the hard way is in fact learning a language the old way. It's a bit of a command line crash course. I imagine that just trying to see how deep this goes down the rabbit hole. Oh, yeah, some interesting. Oh, this is cool actually. Yeah, some real fundamentals there that are not likely to change too much, I don't think. Yeah, no, it's nice to have a fundamental understanding of the command line actually if you don't. So that's a nice addition in there. Yeah, this is a really cool book actually. I'm going to look forward to going through this. Awesome. Okay. I don't know if there's anything else I want to add really as I flick through this, but yeah, definitely does not disappoint. And I like how it's nice and, you know, one of the problems I used to have is that it's nicely paced. It's not getting you like typing in a ton of code too early. And the reason why I don't particularly like that is that can be quite demoralising. If you spend ages like typing code in and then it doesn't run and you've got like reams and reams and reams of code and you're trying to work it out. So this really builds in a nice way, even within the chapters. Pretty cool. Yeah, I love the sort of layout with these operator tables as well and the symbol review. It's a nice touch. Yeah, this is pretty important. This sometimes people gets a little bit overlooked and can, come back to haunt you later on. Is understanding how certain operators might behave differently in different languages. And often, actually, that's one good example where maybe using a REPL early on. That's where I find it advantageous. Is you can sort of sit there and experiment with operators and just make sure they behave the same way or not as they do in another language you might be familiar with. And that can save you a lot of anguish, I think, when you come to type it into a document and you're sort of scratching your head after you put in loads of code and you can't work out why it's misbehaving. Because, as part of this process, you're going to be going through and some of the errors might be caused like because of a syntax error, so the code just won't run. And then other times the code might be run, but it might not be giving the correct answer, which is why this is really useful. And what you've got there is you've got, rather than a syntax error, you've got more sort of like a logic error or a misunderstanding about, how the operator functions, what it does. Because sometimes when you're working in different languages, the equals symbol and variations thereof can mean different things in different instances. So there we have it. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now. And I will catch you in a future video.